Automotive Reviews, and what we have here is our Ancient Alien Series 2. And we're going into the Hindu script called Prem Sagur, Chapter 1. Now, in the commencement of the history, at the end of the Great War of the descendants of Bharat, when Sri Krishna disappeared, Pandu, being greatly grieved, went to the Himalaya to undergo dissolution. And the Raja, Purishit, having conquered all countries, began to rule with justice. Some days afterward, the Raja Purishit went out hunting. When he saw a bullock and a cow running toward him, in pursuit of whom a Sudra, with a wooden pestle in his hand, was coming along and striking them. When they came near, the Raja, grieved and enraged, called out to Sudra, "Who art thou? Explain who art thou, that knowingly beatest a bullock and a cow? Do you suppose Urajan to be far off, that you do not observe his ordinance? Hear me, in the family of Pandu. You will not find any such person in whose presence anyone will be permitted to vex the poor." Saying this, the Raja took his sword in his hand. The Sudru, on seeing this, stood still with fear. The Raja, the Lord of Men, having called the bullock and cow near him, inquired of him, "Explain to me, who art thou? Are you gods or Brahmins? And why are you running away? Speak without fear. In a presence, no one has the power of afflicting you." On hearing this, the bullock, bending his head, said, "O great king, this black-colored, frightful figure, in the form of sin, which is standing in your presence, is the Black Age. I am running away on account of its approach. This, my companion, is the earth, in the form of a cow. She, too, has come running toward you, from dread of the Black Age. My name is Religion. I have 4 feet: penance, truth, compassion, meditation. In the age of truth, my feet will complete. Consist of 20 parts. In the Treta age, they consisted of 16 parts. In the Dupa age, of 12. And now, in the Black Age, I have only 4 parts left. For which reason, I am not able to move about in the Black Age." The earth said, "O incarnation of justice, I also cannot remain in this age, because men of Soju case have become Rajas, will inflict very many acts of injustice on me, the weight of which I should not be able to endure. From dread of this injustice, I too am running away." On hearing this, the Raja, being angry, said to the Black Age, "I will put you to death immediately." On hearing this, the Black Age, falling at the Raja's feet and imploring him earnestly, began to say, "O Lord of all, I have now come under your protection. Appoint me some place to dwell in, because of the 3 times in the 4 ages when Brahmu has established shall not be effaced in any way." Hearing this, the Raja Purishit said to the Black Age, "Dwell in the following places: in gambling, lying, in the spirit market, harlots, houses, murder, theft, and gold." Having heard this, the Black Age went to his appointed abode, and the Raja established religion in his own mind. The earth assumed his own form. The Raja returned to his own city and began to govern justly and religiously. After some days, the Raja went away to hunt, and while engaged in the sport, became thirsty. The Black Age was drilling in the golden crown of the Raja head, and having obtained his opportunity, deprived the Raja of knowledge. The Raja from thirst came to the spot where Loomis, a chief of the saints, was seated with his eyes shut, meditating on Muhudeo and engaged in religious penance. On seeing him, Purishit began to say to himself, "This person, through pride of penance, remained with his eyes shut, although he saw me entertaining his wicked ideas, and having raised up with his bow a dead snake, which had fallen there, and thrown it on the neck of the chief of the saints. He came home on taking off his crown." The Raja recovered his knowledge, and reflecting, began to say, "The abode of the Black Age is in gold. He was upon my head, and this is the reason of my having performed so vicious of an act as throwing a dead snake on the neck of the chief of the saints. I now know that the Black Age has taken his revenge upon me. How shall I escape from this great sin? When have I not been deprived today of my case, wealth, family, wives, and kingdom? I know not in what birth this injustice of my having vexed a Brahmin will be effaced." While the Raja, Purishit, was drowned into the sea of unfathomable reflection, some boys engaged in play came to the place where Lomas, a chief of the saints, was. They were astonished at seeing a dead snake on his neck, and being frightened, began to say to each other, "Brother, let someone go and tell his son of this, who is playing with the saints." Children in a grove on the bank of the river Kashki. One of the boys, hearing this, ran to where Shringi, the saints, was playing with the saint children. The boy said to Shringi, "Brother, why are you playing here? Some devil has thrown a dead black snake on your father's neck and gone off." On hearing this, Shringi's eyes became red. Gnashing his teeth, he began to tremble, and being enraged, to say, "In the Black Age, proud Rajas have been produced from the intoxication of wealth. They have become blind and inflicted of pain. I will now pronounce a curse on him who threw the snake. He shall die on the 7th day from this." Having thus spoken, Shringi the saints took the water of Kuchki river in the palm of his hands and pronounced a curse on the Raja Purishit, that the snake would bite him on the 7th day. Having pronounced the curse on the Raja, he came to his father and took the snake off his neck and began to say to him, "Father, be of good cheer. I have pronounced a curse on him who threw the dead snake on your neck." On bearing this, Lumas the saint, awakening from his meditation, opening his eyes and deeply considering in his mind, his son's speech said to him, "O son, what is this thou hast done? Why have you pronounced the curse on Raja, under whose governance we lived at ease? Not a bird, not a beast, even was afflicted. So just was the government, that the lion and the cow dwelt under it without altercation. O son, what mattered it if he, in whose country we live, threw a dead snake upon me in sport? Why did you curse him, and inflict so heavy of a curse for such a slight fault? You have been guilty of a great crime, and neglected to think of what you were doing. You have abandoned good and embraced evil. It is necessary for a good man to cultivate amiable dispositions, not to say anything himself, to hear what others say, and imitate the good qualities, and avoid the bad qualities of all. Oh, my son, what have you done?" Saying this, Lumas the saint called one of the pupils and told him to go and tell the Raja Purishit that Shringi had pronounced a curse on him, and good man will impute blame to Shringi for what he has done. But the Raja, on receiving this message, will be on his guard and obedience in the words of the spiritual preceptor. The people came to the place where the Raja was sitting in meditation, and said to him on his arrival, Shwenge, the saints have pronounced this curse on you, that the snake shall bite you on the seventh day. Do you now arrange so that you may escape from the noose of fate? On hearing this, the Raja stood up with delight, and joining his hands together began to say, This saint has done me a great kindness in pronouncing a curse, because I had fallen into the boundless thoughted sea of delusion, from which he has released me. When the disciples of the age departed, the Raja performed penance by abandoning all pleasure of the world, and having sent for Jiminy and made over his throne to him, said, O son, cherish the cow and the Brahman, and give continence to the subject. Saying this, he went into the female apartments. The women on seeing him were all sad. His wives, the Renees, on beholding him, fell weeping at his feet and exclaimed, O great king, we weak creatures will not be able to endure separation from you, for which reason it is better that we should give up our lives with yours. The Raja said in reply, It is right for women to act in such a way that the character and dignity of her husband may be maintained, and not to throw any obstacle in the way of an excellent work. Having said this, and having abandoned relatives, kindred, and all private and public wealth, he went and sat down on the shore of the Ganges to perform penance. Whoever heard of the circumstance were much grieved and distressed, and shed tears. When the Sajas heard that the Raja Parishit had gone to the bank of the Ganges to die in consequences of Shringi's curse, Bayas, Visis, Buddhanaja, Kinyun, Pursa, Nurad, and Beswamatru, Bamdeo, Jumdagon, and 88,000 Sajas came and sat down in a row, and thinking upon the Shastras, began to explain various kinds of religious observance to the Raja. In the meantime, having seen the Raja fate, Sri Shakadu Ji came also, with a book under his arm, and naked. On seeing him, all the Sajas rose up, and Raja Purishit, rising up in a supplication posture, and making an obeisance, began to say, O Lord of Passion, you have shown great mercy in remembering me at this time. When the Raja had thus spoken, Shakadu the sage also sat down. When the Raja said to the Sajas, O great king, Shakadiyo Ji is the son of Bayas Ji, and the grandson of Purusu Ji, on seeing whom you who are saints of high rank rose up, which I do not think right. Explain the reason of this, that the doubts of my mind may be dissipated. Pursuer the Saj said, Raja, all of us saints, however high in degree, are inferior in understanding to Shuk, and therefore we have all treated him with such respect, some in this hope that he is the savior of the saved, because from the time of his birth he has spent his life in sadness in the desert. The Rajas, all your great excellences, have been increased by the coming of Shakadu Ji. This will be pronounced the greatest and the best religious and virtuous act, Dharwam, by means of which, having been freed from life and death, you will cross over the sea of the world. On hearing this, Raja Purushin, having prostrated himself before Shakadiyo Ji, said, O great king, explain the duties of religion to me. How shall I escape from the noose of faith? What shall I do in 7 days? My impiety has been very great. How shall I cross over the sea of the world? Shishakaduji replied, Raja, do not think the time short, as release can be obtained by religious meditation for an hour, just in the same way that the Nuru Dasaj imparted understanding to the Raja Ruktengu, and he obtained release in 2 hours. 7 days are quite sufficient time for you. If you will meditate attentively, you will understand all. What the body is, who abode it is, and who manifests light in it. On hearing this, the Raja inquired with great delight, O great king, which is the most excellent Dharam? Kindly explain it to me. Shakaduji said, the Vishnu Dharam is the greatest amongst the Dharams, and Sri Bhagavat among the Puranas. Rather the worshipper of Vishnu recite this history, there all religious observance and pilgrimages will come together among all the Puranas. There is none equal to Bhagavat, for which reason I recite to you 9 parts of the great Purana, in which Bias and Sajas has instructed me. Listen with faith and joy. Upon this, the Raja Purishit began to listen with pleasure, and Shakadiyuji, according to his premise, to recite. And we will continue the third part of the Ancient Alien series. Thanks for watching, and remember, like and subscribe and share. When the Saj had recited 9 parts of the history of the Raja said, kind to the poor, have the goodness now to explain to me the history of the descent upon earth, Sri Krishna, because he is our supporter and the object of worship of our family. Shakaduji said, you have conferred great pleasure on me in asking for this account. I shall most joyfully relate it. In the family of Yadu, the first Raja was named Bhagwan, whose son was Prithiko, and Prithiko's son was Bidaruth. Bidaruth's son was Sorsen, who, having conquered 9 divisions of the earth, obtained celebrity. Bidaruth's wife, name was Mikriya, who had 10 sons and 5 daughters. The eldest son was Basadeo, and whose wife 8 pregnancies. Sri Krishna Jun Ji was born. When Basadeo Ji was born, the gods had musical rejoicing in the heavens. And among the 5 daughters of Sorsen, Kutni was the eldest, who married Pando, whose story has been sung, and Mubarat and Basadeo Ji married first Rani, the daughter of Raja Ruhan, and afterwards 17 other wives. After he had married 18 times, he married Admutra Duwoki, the sister of Kunz, upon which there was a voice from heaven that in the 8th pregnancy of this girl, the destroyer of Kunz should be born. On hearing this, Kunz had his sister and her husband shut up in the house, and Sri Krishna was born there. On hearing these, much of the story of the Raja Purishit said, O great king, how was Kunz born? Who conferred a great blessing upon him in the manner was Krishna brought into the world? And how did he arrive in Gokul? Please explain these circumstances to me. Sri Shakaduji said, there was a Raja of Mutra named Ahuk, who had 2 sons, one named Dawuk and the other Orgosan. After some time, Orgosan became Raja and had only one wife named Purukishke, very beautiful and chaste, and at all times obedient to the commands of her husband. One day, she had the menses, and by permission of her husband, had gone out on a party of pleasure to the jungle in company with her female attendants. There, on trees of many kinds, all sorts of flowers were blossoming. A cool, gentle breeze, filled with perfumes, were blowing. Cuckoos, pigeons, parrots, peacocks were pouring forth sweet, pleasing notes. And on one side, under a hill, the Jamna was flowing apart. The Renee, on viewing this scene, descended from her car, and while walking alone, suddenly lost her way. By accident, a demon named Drumelik came there and remained gazing in astonishment at her youth and beautiful appearance. And he began to say to himself, I must have connection with her. Having resolved upon this, and immediately assuming the form of the Raja Organson, he went into the presence of Renee and said to her, Embrace me. The Renees replied, O great king, it is not right to indulge in amatory pleasure in the daytime, because by doing so, the good and religious qualities of the mind are destroyed. What, are you not aware of this? That you have thought of such a vicious act? When Puruka had thus spoken, Drumelik, having seized Renee by the hand, drew her towards him and accomplished what he wished. After he had connection with the Renee through the artifice of disguise, he assumed his own proper form, upon which the Renee, being exceedingly grieved and afflicted, exclaimed, O unjust foul sinner! What tyranny have you committed in destroying my virtue? There is a curse on your father, mother, and spiritual preceptor, and having formed your understanding. Why was not thy mother barren, rather than produce a son like you? O devil! All men who destroy the virtue of woman fall into hell in such successive birth. Drumelik said, Renee, do not curse me, for I have given you the fruit of my excellence. Seeing your womb closed, I suffered great anxiety of mind, which is now gone. From today, there is a hope of your pregnancy, and you shall have a son in the 10th month. And from the good properties of my body, thy son, having conquered the 9 divisions of the earth, shall be king, and shall fight with Krishna. My first name is Kelnam. Then I had an encounter with Berlo. In my present birth, I am called Drumelik. I have given thee a son. Dismiss all your anxiety from your mind. After he had thus spoken, when Cahan had gone away, the Renee was restored on reflection to patience of mind. Whatever our fate may be, our understanding will be fashioned in accordance with it. What is to be will dwell in the mind of all memory, and consciousness will vanish. In the meanwhile, or after this, all the female attendants came up, and on seeing the Renee ornaments in disorder, one attendant said, Where have you been delayed so long? And what has happened to you? Purika replied, You left me, O attendants, alone in the forest. A monkey came and gave me great annoyance, from fear of which I am even now trembling. On hearing this, all the attendants were alarmed, and sitting the Renee immediately on her roof, brought her home. When 10 months were completed, a son was born, at which time a violent tempest occurred. The earth began to quake. It became so dark that the day was turned into night, and stars began to fall, broken in fragments, the clouds to thunder, and the lightning to crack. And dismember the 13th of the late part of the month, Mag, on the Thursday Kunz was born, on which occasion the Raja Orgason, being delighted and having sent for the musicians of the city, caused musical entertainment to be given. And he also sent for all the Brahmins, Pundits, and astrologers, and treated them with very great respect and dignity. On their arrival, the Raja offered them seats. After receiving them with great civility, after this, the astrologer, having fixed upon the lucky moment and division of time, said to the Raja, "O Lord, the earth, this child named Kunz, who has been born in your family, should be very powerful, and should reign, associating devils with him, and having caused affliction to the gods and the worshippers of Vishnu. After having obtained your kingdom, he should die suddenly by the hand of Huri." Having told so much of the story, Shugadu the Sage said to the Raja Purishit, "Raja, I will now tell you the history of Duuk and the brother Orgason, who had 4 sons and 6 daughters, which 6 he gave in marriage to Basadeo. The 7th was Duwuki, and the consequence of whose birth the gods were delighted. And Orgason also had 10 sons, the eldest of whom was Kunz. From the time of his birth, he was in the habit of going into the city and violently seizing little children and putting them to death. After having shut them up in the caves and the hills, those who were grown up, he got upon their chests and strangled them. No one could escape from this calamity. Everyone concealed his children. The subject said this, "Kunz is a devil. He does not belong to the family of Orgason. Some great sinner has been born, who has brought affliction on the whole city." On hearing this, Orgason sent for him and entered into the many explanations with him regarding his conduct, but Kunz paid no attention to what he said. Upon this, being grieved and distressed, Orgason said, "Why was I not without son, rather than have such a son as this?" It is said that when a degenerate son is born in a family, good name and character depart. When Kunz was 8 years old, he made an attack upon Magud country. The Raja of the country, Jarasindo, was very powerful, with whom Kunz contended, and Jarasindo acknowledged the power of Kunz in treating him with great deference, as his superior gave him 2 daughters in marriage, whom Kunz brought with him to Mutra, and began to increase his enmity against Orgason. One day he said in a fit of rage to his father, "Give up calling on the name of Ram, and offer up your secret prayers to Mahadeo." The father replied, "Ram is Lord, and a dispiller of my griefs. If I do not worship him, how shall I, as a sinful man, cross over the sea of the world?" Hearing this, Kunz was enraged, and having seized his father, took possession of the whole government, and issued a proclamation in the city that no one should be allowed to offer up sacrifice or gifts of prayer, or call upon the name of Ram. Such great tyranny prevailed that the cow and Brahman and the worshippers of Vishnu began to suffer affliction, and the earth to perish from excessive burden. When Kunz had taken possession of the government of all the Rajas, he went one day with his army to attack the Raja Andrew. Upon this occasion, the minister said to him, "O great king, the country of Andrew cannot be obtained without prayers and devotion. Do not be proud on account of your strength. Consider how their pride brought Kuan and Kubukuan to such destruction that not one of their family had been left. Having narrated such so much history, Shakanuji said to Raja Parishit, O Raja, when this excessive tyranny was exercised upon the earth assumed the form of a cow, and went lowing into the country of the gods, and having gone to Indru court, bowing her head, she told all of the troubles. O great king, evil spirits has begun to commit great crimes in the world, from dread of whom religion and justice have departed. And if I receive your orders, I will abandon the world and descend to the regions below. On hearing this, Indru, accompanied by all the gods, went to Brahma. Brahma, having heard what they had said, took them all to Mudeo, who, having heard the circumstance, went accompanied by all the gods to the place where Narayan was sleeping in the sea of milk. Knowing him to be asleep, Brahma, Raju, Indru, and all the gods stood up with their hands in supplicating posture, and making obeisance, began to sing the praises of the Vedas. O great and powerful king, who can describe thy greatness? In the form of a fish, you rescued the drowning Vedas. In the shape of a tortoise, you supported the hill. On your back, being transformed into a bear, you placed the earth upon one of your tusks. And in the form of a dwarf, you circumvented the Raja bull, descending on the earth as Purasam. And having destroyed the Kshatris, you gave the earth to Kusp. The Saj, descending on the earth as rain, you destroyed the great demon Kuan. And wherever devils afflict your worshippers, you come to their assistance. O Lord, the earth, much distressed by tyranny of Kunzu, is calling out to thee. Be pleased to take her cause quickly into consideration, and having destroyed all the demons, give pleasure to the good. The gods continued thus singing in the excellence of Narayan. When there was a voice from heaven, Brahma explained to all the gods that the voice they had just heard instructed them all, both gods and good goddesses, to go to Brunjamadu and to be born in the city of Mutra. Hereafter, Vishnu, assuming 4 shapes, will descend upon the earth in the house of Bosadeo and in the womb of Dewuki, and by his childish sport will give pleasure to Nund and Jashudu. When Brahma had given this explanation, the gods, the sages, the heavenly musicians, and the singers were all together with their wives, born upon the earth, and came to Brujamodo. They called themselves of the family of Udo, and cowherds and female guardians of the 4 Vedas went to Brahma and said, We too will descend upon the earth as cowherders and attend upon Vasudeo. Saying this, they also came to Bruje and called themselves cowherders. When all the gods had arrived at Mutra, Vishnu began to meditate in the sea of milk, and Lakshmi should first be Balaram. Afterward, he, Vishnu, should be named Vasudeo. Barut should be Prodhamu. Satrughn should be Anadru, and Sita should descend on the earth as Rukmuni. And this is the end of Ancient Aliens, Chapter 1. This is A Automotive Reviews. Thanks for watching. Remember, share, like, and subscribe.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more interesting videos.